We can move that away, put it anywhere.
Okay, hi everyone. I just want to say thank you and welcome. A few little logistic things before we get fully started. I just move my mouse over here. Okay, so if you can type in the chat, say hi, let us know where you are joining us from and your name, that would be fabulous. I see we have lots of people from coast to coast. We have Oakville, Montreal, we had some Langley, and yeah, so it's pretty great. I think we have the whole country represented, and we have over 100 people joining us right now, so that's very exciting. So yeah, we have our chat. You can use the chat to say hi and ask questions throughout the presentation. Okay, so if you have any issues with your screen, you might just need to refresh it. Push the F5 button. Also, if you have lots of tabs open, just close all those other tabs. Pay attention 100% because this is going to be a fabulous talk. You do not want to be distracted by anything else. As I mentioned, feel free to chat and discuss. All of your questions will be addressed towards the end of the webinar. We are recording as we speak, so that means you can rewatch this anytime. You can rewatch it right away as soon as we finish. You can even rewind while we're going live. And also feel free to share this link with anyone that you think might benefit from it and give us a thumbs up. Yeah, you can browse our webinar library. So we have lots of great stuff available for you through the RLP network. You can look for building your tech toolkit for webinars about technology. And then you can check out Sales Success to have other good talks by other wonderful featured speakers. Okay, so who do we have today? We have Nickly Bilou. And Nicky is the #1 international best-selling author of the book, Finish Line Thinking, How to Think and Win Like a Champion. He is co-founder of eCircle Academy, where he runs a year-long mastermind program working with coaches, consultants, corporate trainers, and entrepreneurs, positioning them as authorities in their niche. He's also been a coach, a mentor, and advisor to some of the top CEOs in the country. As the co-host of the Top 10 podcast, The Business of Thought Leadership, Nicky has interviewed over 50 thought leaders from around the world, including astronaut Chris Hadfield, marketing guru Seth Godin, George Ross of the hit TV series The Apprentice, Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, supermodel and business mogul Kathy Ireland, BNI CEO Dr. Ivan Misner. As a speaker, Nicky is frequently called upon to present to corporate audiences, sports associations, and non-for-profit organizations. He draws his presentations from his own intensive studies. Dr. Anders Ericsson's work on 10,000 Hours, Angela Lee Duckworth's work on grit, and injects his own personal story on adversity and heartbreak. Having worked with Olympic champions and top CEOs, he shares with the audience the DNA of high-performance leadership, success, and wellness. So I'd like to welcome Nicky. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nicky.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's an honor to be here. Hello, hello. Welcome to today's talk. It's really a privilege to be here. In addition to all the wonderful things Stephanie said about me, I've had the privilege of being able to present at Royal LePage before. I was a keynote speaker in the 2014 Chairman's Club in Mexico. I spoke at the 2014 Sales Conference, and I've had the privilege of working with Mark Ferris and his team as a speaker and as a coach for some of his high-performing people. And it's a real privilege to be able to work with the #1 team in the whole country and be part of their success. So let's get right to it, shall we? So the title of today's talk is how to add 250 to 500,000 to your gross commission income this year. Now, that sounds like a big number. It is. It's a range, but it's possible. It's something that through the work that I've done with a number of people in Royal LePage who sell real estate has happened, can happen, And it absolutely has everything to do with a couple of secrets that I'm going to share with you throughout this talk. Okay. So here's some questions I want to ask you. And if you'd like to answer them in the chat, please go ahead and do so. So have you had a client ask you to cut your commissions in the last year, in the last 12 months? So go ahead and put the answer to that in the chat. Have you had to compete for a listing with one or more other realtors, especially realtors from other companies, the bad guys? Have you and your buyers lost out on deals to multiple offers? Or have you been running into more FSBOs and flat fee commission situations? Okay, great. If you're answering, that's fantastic. Fabulous. I see the feed. It's awesome to see those answers. Awesome. Let's keep moving. Here's some hard facts. According to CREA, there's almost 110,000 realtors in Canada and over 42,000 of them in the Greater Toronto area versus just 20,000 back in 2006. That's huge growth.
Oh, hang on. That's okay.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Whoops.
It should be good now.
It's not good. We're having a bit of a technical challenge. This technical break is brought to you by the Royal LePage Learning Services team, bringing you the best in training and education.
I think we're good now.
Okay, great. Awesome. So there's been downward pressure on commissions, and that pressure is increasing. So there's folks that are paying 3% versus 5%, which is what they ought to be paying, and in some cases, even less than that. 30% of homes nationally are now being sold by FSBO and flat fee services. And in the province of Quebec, over 50% are being sold in this fashion. So Canadian real estate growth overall, this slide's a little dated, as you can see, has slowed down to 0.2%. It's been negative in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And in fact, according to some stats from CREA, even in Ontario and BC, lately there's been some kind of negative growth, also known as contraction. So and the market is slowing down. So this is a stat that I just pulled up yesterday. Year over year sales are down 11.4% June 2017 versus June 2016. So what does this all say? Okay, here's what it says to me. The outlook for this year and beyond is it's harder than ever for you to stand out from the sea of sameness that's out there. There's so many realtors out there. Standing out is more important than ever, and it's harder than ever. Costs are rising and commissions are falling. Competition has been increasing. There's new realtors who've been jumping in. FSBO's been increasing, and flat fee services are getting traction. Oops. So these are the facts. This is the reality of what you are facing. So how do you stand out? How do you get away from this reality and create your own reality, your own success, your own economy? Well, there's a number of ways. What we're going to focus on today primarily is something I call finish line thinking. But before we get into that, I want to tease you with something else that I believe is super important, and it's not on the slide. So if you want to take notes, this is a good time to take notes. So for you to stand out from the sea of sameness, you need to find a way to take your expertise and your genius and define it so that you can position yourself as an authority inside the market area that you work in. All kinds of realtors today say, what makes me different is I give good service. Okay, type in the chat if you've said that yourself, if you want to be brave, or you've heard another realtor say it. So here's the thing. The truth is that almost every realtor says that or something like it. It's not good enough to say that. People expect you to say that. You need to be able to position yourself as an expert or an authority in another way. You need to, for example, be able to say, I know X area in my market better than anybody. So, you know, if you live in Toronto, you may say, I'm the go-to guy or gal for High Park, right? I know everything about how to buy a new home for a first-time buyer in High Park. That's just an example. But you've got to start thinking about what it is about what you do and how you do it for your customer that is unique, that is different, that makes you stand out. Because if you stick to what you've been doing and what everybody else says, it's not going to help you stand out. And it can be a grind. The market right now, certainly in the Greater Toronto area and a bunch of other markets, has slowed down a bit. It's important for you to really get to what's going to make people see you as being different. Otherwise, if you're stuck in the sea of sameness, your success is going to be dictated by the market. It is not going to be dictated by you and what you're able to do and what you're able to cause in the market. If that makes sense to you, type that in the chat, okay? Awesome. So I'm teasing you with that because I intend to come back and deliver a talk on that in the fall. So I wanted Stephanie to hear that, and I wanted you to be intrigued by that and type that up in the chat. What we're going to focus on today is your mindset. So my specialty, my expertise is in helping people elevate their mindset to that of a champion, okay? So let me tell you what I mean about that. Champion performers think differently than everybody else. They think of victory. They think in a way that other people don't think. Most people use something I call fourth place thinking. They think about how things can go wrong. Champions, finish line thinkers, think about how things can go well and how they can win. And I know this because I've had the privilege of working with some top champions in their field. I've had the privilege of working with Olympic champion Donovan Bailey. I've had the privilege of working with Olympic champion Mark McCoy. Type in the chat if you've heard of either one of these two. I've also worked with Teresa Dugwell, who set the first of her 3 world records by running on a treadmill for 12 hours at the age of 46. I know, Stephanie, that's kind of insane. Like, Stephanie's giving me a look like, oh my God, that's nuts, right? I've worked with people like Mark Ferris and members of his team, the #1 real estate agent in Royal LePage, and I worked with Kimberly Finney from the Finney team as well. And I'm telling you, these people think differently. So you might be thinking to yourself, what the heck is he talking about? What is finish line thinking? What's fourth place thinking? What's the difference? How can I apply this to my business and my success to raise my commission by $100, $200, $250, $500,000 in a year? We're going to get into that. Oops.
No, that's okay. It's just my voice.
You're getting stuck again.
Yeah.
All right.
My mouth doesn't want to be productive. Sorry. I think you're okay now.
Good.
There you go.
Awesome. So I'm going to illustrate this by telling you the story of my good friend Mark McCoy. That's Mark just after he won an Olympic gold medal for Canada in track and field at the Barcelona Olympics. Prior to this, Mark's nickname was Mr. Fourth Place. And as you may well imagine, that was not a flattering nickname. The reason they called him Mr. Fourth Place is although he was a 15-time Canadian champion, although he'd set 3 world records, in all the big races, he kind of choked. He didn't win. You know, at the '84 Olympics in Barcelona, in LA, he finished in 4th place. The World Championships in '85, he finished in 4th place. At the '80 Olympics, he finished in 7th place. Whenever there was a big race, Mark lost. But then he had an epiphany. He found himself an incredible peer group and an incredible set of mentors, and he went from 4th place to winning an Olympic gold medal for Canada at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. That was the first Olympic gold Canada had won in track and field in 60 years. And Here's what's better. He was 30 years old. And let me tell you, in a ballistic sport like the 110-meter hurdles, that's ancient. He's the oldest man to ever win a sport like that. Gold medal. Would you like to know how he did it? If you would, type yes in the chat. Okay, great. I'll keep going. Whoops. Okay, fantastic. Here we are. So before I tell you Mark's story, let me tell you a bit about my story, okay? So I've been a business owner for almost 20 years, and I used to be married, and I owned my business with my then wife. In 2009, seemingly out of the blue, she let me know that she didn't want to be married to me anymore, and we split up. It was a terrible time for me because at the beginning it was a bit acrimonious, and I wasn't able to see my kids for 41 straight days. I lost all faith in myself. I lost my mojo. My business tanked. I lost over 95% of my clients. If not for the grace of God and having great family and friends around me, I'd be destitute and out on the street. I was in a horrific space. But within a couple of years, I was able to turn all that around. My business rebounded, and in fact, it became bigger and better than it was when I co-owned the business with my then wife. And the good news is that since then, my then wife and I, we haven't reconciled, but we have the best divorce of anybody I know. We're in fact talking about going on vacation together this summer with our kids. And it's a fabulous relationship. My business is doing great. And the rest of my life is great. So how did I make that happen? Very simple. I employed the principles I'm about to share with you today, the principles of Finish Line Thinking. They not only apply to specifically your business and generating more sales, they frankly apply to making any of your area of your life work better. So the problem that I faced initially, the problem that Mark faced, the problem that you may be facing in your business, especially as the market slows down, is fourth place thinking. So what is fourth place thinking? There are three main principles to fourth place thinking. So number one, defeat. Visualizing defeat. Number two, distract. Being unaccountable and being distracted. Okay. And number three, doubt. Being paralyzed by doubt. All right, I'll keep going. So let's talk about defeat, visualizing defeat. So if you have a notebook or if you type on your computer or some other device, this is a good time to do it, okay? So type in the chat and take some notes if you've ever set a really big goal for your business or even your life, and as soon as you set it, you started thinking of how it wouldn't happen. You started visualizing what life would be like with it not happening, especially if it was a big goal that you've never achieved before. It's way out of your comfort zone business-wise. So if you're a $150,000 a year agent and you wanted to make $250,000, that's the kind of goal. If you're a $250,000 agent, you want to make $500,000 a year, that's the kind of goal I'm talking about. If you're a $500,000 a year agent and you wanted to make $1 million, $2 million a year, that's the kind of goal I'm talking about. So did you ever set the goal and then start having visual thoughts or even like hearing voices telling you that's never going to happen, that can't happen to me, or having that sinking feeling in your stomach going, oh my God, no, it's not good. I want to get away from this. I can't make it happen. Type that in the chat. And if you specifically can think of when that happened to you, I want you to take notes for yourself and outline it in detail for a moment or two, okay? So I'm actually going to stay silent for a moment right now to give you time to type in the chat and write all this down. Great. And if you're sitting in a monitor and you have other team members with you, this is a good time to have some back and forth discussion with one another to really get deeply into what that's like, because that'll help you get into it deeper. The more powerfully you make this real for yourself, the easier it is for us by the end of this talk to help you overcome it so that you can get into the finish line thinking. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. Right, too many times. Yes, it has happened. Good, yes, absolutely. Okay, fantastic. So let's move on. Distract. So here's the dictionary definition of distract. Okay. So the dictionary definition of distract is to prevent someone from giving full attention to something. Okay. And the second definition is to divert one's attention from something unpleasant by doing something more pleasant or different that's pleasurable. So type in the chat if you've ever done that. And in particular, let me give you an example. So instead of door knocking, instead of cold calling, instead of making follow-up calls to people in your circle of influence, instead of sitting in front of people that could actually give you a listing or become a buyer, all that hard work, you've like gone on Facebook. You've like gone on LinkedIn. You've like called your friend and had coffee or lunch. Here's the problem with distraction. It's a sign of having an unaccountable mind. It's a sign of flabby thinking. When you allow yourself to be distracted, or when you distract other people, what you're doing is you are weakening your thinking. You're weakening your mind. It's how a fourth place thinker thinks. It's not how a finish line thinker thinks. So take a moment now, type in the chat, write down on a sheet of paper or on your computer or whatever device you have an example of a time you've done this. Be real with yourself. The more fully you participate and the more fully you get into this and you tell one on yourself, the easier it's going to be for us to excavate that garbage out of your psyche, get it out where it belongs into the ether, and fill your psyche up with positive, powerful ways of thinking that are going to move you and your gross commission up to the next level and beyond. Okay. How to change this distraction? That's a question we're getting from Jay, right? Joy Neville. Okay. Wonderful. Great question. We're going to get into that. We really, really are. Trust me, but not just yet. Great question, though. Okay. Excellent. I will move on to the next. I love this graphic that's coming up. You're going to love this graphic. It's a great graphic. Wait for it. Wait for it. It's such a good graphic. It's almost ready. Oh, there you go. The third principle of fourth place thinking is doubt, feeling like a loser with a big L on top of your forehead, asking loser questions and being paralyzed. So what's that like? Here's the thing with doubt. Doubt kills the warrior. In a sense, out in the world, you are a warrior. A warrior to me is an honorable man, an honorable woman who is going out there, you know, and is humble, is serving people, is taking care of the weak, is putting himself or herself out there to help the people that matter most. These are the people in your family. These are your customers. That's what a warrior does. You are a hero because you serve your family and you serve your customer. I salute you for being a warrior, for being a hero, for being someone who's got the guts to put yourself out there day in, day out, and be raw and vulnerable with the people you want to serve, to have them be your clients. You are our society's greatest hero as a salesperson. Bravo. But here's what doubt does to you. Doubt kills you. Doubt takes away your mojo. Doubt takes away your power. And how does doubt come about? Well, in a couple of ways. Doubt comes about when you ask yourself what I call loser questions. So a loser question is like when you get up in the morning, the first thing you ask yourself is, do I have to get up today? It's so warm and cozy in my bed. Do I really need to make those prospecting calls? Do I really need to door knock? I mean, I can do it through Facebook. I can do it through SEO. I can do it through online ads, right? But even the way you say right to yourself, you doubt that that's possible. These are what I call loser questions. And I've asked myself loser questions. Heck, I still ask myself loser questions. Here's the problem with loser questions. The brain is an amazing, marvelous tool. Whatever you ask it, it will try to figure out. So if you ask loser questions, it will try to figure out the answer. And there are no good answers to loser questions. Your brain will give you negative inputs. That negativity will weaken you. It will paralyze you. It will stop you from being successful. So you may be thinking to yourself right now, hey, the market slowed down in my city. Maybe I shouldn't try as hard. What's the use? You know, there's not as many opportunities, not as many homes going for sale, not as many buyers. There's not the bidding wars there used to be. It's not, that is a loser question. That's horrible. That's horrific. That will keep you from making the sale, from getting the listing, from getting the buyer that you need to get to make it happen. So I want you to think about some of the loser questions you ask yourself on a daily basis. Type them in the chat, write them out. We want to excavate these questions out of your mind. They are garbage questions. We're going to excavate them. You're going to write them out, and then we're going to rip them up and throw them away because we intend to empower you. Write in the chat if you like what you're hearing from me. If you're getting empowered, if you like my energy, write it in the chat. So I'll give you more. Excellent question. Feeling defeat after a deal fell through. How to get over this. We're going to get into that. I promise you, Carol. I promise you. Just not yet. Like it. Very good. Yes. Does door knocking really work? Yes, door knocking really works. Absolutely. Being in front of real human beings, having the courage and the bravery to stand in front of them and offer to serve them, even when they in the moment don't get what you bring to the table. That's the very definition of courage, and courage is rewarded. God, the universe, rewards the man and the woman who steps into the arena and takes action. Okay, awesome. I will move on. So what's the answer? How do we get over this fourth place thinking? The answer is finish line thinking. Thinking like a champion, thinking like a high performer, like a gold medalist, like the #1 real estate agent in the whole country, or at least in your market or in your area. Thinking like a winner. So what are the principles of finish line thinking? Would you like to know? Well, I'll tell you. So number one, it's visualizing crossing the finish line. Victorious. Number two, it's having a focused, accountable mind. Focused like a laser. Accountable, not flabby, not all over the place, not distracted. Focused. And number three, and this is powerful, this is important, kill the doubt. Kill doubt and ask winner questions, empowering questions. I will get into each of these in turn, and they should answer your questions that you had from before. If you asked a question and I said I'll answer it later, and you felt I haven't answered by the end of this, feel free to remind me that it's not answered to your satisfaction, and I will answer it more thoroughly. So, visualize crossing the finish line victorious. So, let me tell you a little story. So, in 2016, I worked with a member of the Ferris team. And this was a lady who'd had a very good year in 2015, but wanted to step up her game to the next level. The most important thing that we worked on together was having her have a clear idea of what crossing the finish line looked like. So she set a big, hairy, audacious goal at the finish line of selling 90 homes and adding $75,000 to her gross commission. So here's the amazing thing that happened. I had her daily write down what her goals were and focus on what she needed to do to win. And I had her take on some habits, some daily disciplines to get her to the next level. By the end of 2016, she had sold 90 homes, but her gross commission didn't go up $75,000. It went up $272,000. And a big reason why is that she visualized crossing the finish line victorious. Victory was what she focused on, and she planned for victory. So what I want you to do is, today is July 20th. We have 5 months and 11 days left in the year. Goal for the year. But all that's done right now. I want you to set a goal for the rest of the year, for the next 5 months and 11 days. I want you to write it out clearly and succinctly in terms of a number of homes you're going to sell or your team is going to sell, in terms of the gross commission income you're going to earn, in terms of the families you're going to serve, the first-time buyer, if you work with first-time buyers, that you're going to help get into their first dream home, the person who's getting into their next home, who wants a dream home and is having a hard time finding it with all the bidding wars, the person who's an investor, the person who needs to sell because they're getting a divorce, the person who needs to sell because someone's lost a job and they need to pull out some equity. I want you to think of those men and women and children you're going to serve. So first, I want a number for the number of deals you're going to do for the rest of the year. Second, I want a number for the gross commission you're going to earn for the rest of the year. Third, I want a number for the people you're going to help. And I want you to write down some detail. Put it in the chat and put it on paper. Write down some detail. Who are these people you serve? Who are these people you're going to give your heart, your soul, your love to? Because let me tell you something. Sales is an act of love. if you are a salesperson, you are selling from your heart. You are selling from a space of love. You're selling from serving somebody, serving a family, serving a single man or woman buying their first home. You are helping them overcome their fears, their insecurities, and you're making their dreams come true. And that, to me, is an act of love. If that resonates with you, write that out in the chat. So make sure you've got that written down fully. The financial goal, the deal goal, and the human goal. All righty. I'm moving on to the next point. The next point's powerful. The next point's important. The next point's magnificent. It's all about having a focused and accountable mind. A finish line thinker is focused. They're not wasting time on social media and Facebook and chit chats. They are doing the most important things that bring them sales results. If you are a real estate salesperson, I submit to you, there are a very few actions that you need to focus on. Everything else, you need to find a way to delegate. Number one, you need to be prospecting. You need to be making calls. You need to be door knocking. You need to be following up with your circle of influence. You need to be out there at events, finding people who potentially are interested in buying or selling a home or in investing in property. Prospecting. Write that down. That is one of the things that you must do. And I want you to take into account Pareto's law. Pareto's law says that 80% of your results will come from 20% of your actions. This first thing that I talked to you about is the most important thing you need to do. The second thing you, as a real estate salesperson, need to do is you need to be sitting in front of potential buyers and potential sellers and signing listing agreements and buyer agreements. Listing agreements and buyer agreements. You need to do that. Nobody else can do that but you. And then number three, you need to be closing the deal for your buyer or your seller. You need to do that. All the other things that need to get done in order to make a real estate transaction successful, and all the things that today are in vogue, like going on Facebook and this and that and the other, and social media and Instagramming and Snapchatting and all that, you don't need to do them. I'm not saying they don't have a place. I'm just saying they're not the highest and best use of your time as a professional real estate salesperson. Let me give you an example of how I know this. The champion performers I know what their most important things are, and that's where they live. They do not live in distraction. So I'll tell you a story from athletics. Michael Johnson. Do you remember Michael Johnson? He is the fellow who raced against Donovan Bailey at the Skydome 10 years ago at the 150-meter race, and Donovan beat him. But Michael Johnson was a great champion. He won 4 Olympic gold medals, and he won 4 world championships. By any measure, a champion. And Michael Johnson used to wear these gold Nike shoes. They were made with real gold. They were $3,000 US a pair. And at the end of every race, I know, Stephanie, craziness, right? At the end of every race, he would whip him off his feet and toss him into the crowd. It was great when he won. Nike loved it because they got all kinds of great publicity, but it sucked when he lost because it wasn't such a good thing. One day, a reporter went to him and in a very snarky tone of voice and said, Mr. Johnson, how come you wear gold shoes? What if you lose? Won't you be embarrassed? He was trying to do a gotcha question. Michael Johnson just looked at him with a look of utter disgust and said, I don't think about losing. I think about winning. And then he walked away. That says it all. That says it all. So my good friend Mark McCoy, who told me this story, I asked him one day, I said, did you always think about winning when you ran? And he said, no. And I said, how come you're going to gold bells? He said, I'm also human. And he said, but you know, here's what I can tell you, Nicky. Whenever I knew I was going to win, I almost always won. And whenever I wasn't so certain, I almost always lost. So I said to him, Mark, you got to tell me, man. Give me more. Like, what's the difference between knowing you're going to win and almost being sure you're not going to win? Those are two very different states of mind. And he said, it's all a function of my level of preparation and focus when I had done the work to be fully prepared, when he'd done his equivalent of you prospecting, you doing listing and buyer agreements, and you closing deals. When that's where he lived and spent his time, he was ready, and he almost always won because he was fully prepared. But when he dogged it, when he, you know what with the pooch, when he went and took time off, and he wasn't prepared and he cut corners, he lost. Guess what? That is you. When you're prepared, when you've done your prospecting, when you know your area, when you've done the work to be prepared, you are a rock star realtor. You help people, you make sales, your gross commission rises. When you don't do that, when you're lazy, and there's a common misconception that realtors are lazy, and I don't believe it's true, but when you are lazy, when you feel laziness creeping into your being, when you sleep in because it's summer instead of going out there and doing more prospecting calls, that's when you're going to lose. You need to be focused. You need to do everything every day. There is no time off unless you've specifically taken it off as vacation time. When you are a professional, you need to act like a professional, and that's how you win. If this all makes sense for you, please type it in the chat. Please let me know. And if you have questions around it, please ask the question as well. I'm going to be moving on again. All right. Stephanie, we're getting some good feedback. Okay, you're absolutely going to love the last point of Finish Line Thinking because it's so good. I love this graphic. It's my favorite graphic in the entire presentation. Look at that. She warrior. She's awesome. So here's the final principle of Finish Line Thinking. You got to kill the doubt before it kills your business. So if you're doubting your ability to be good on the phone when you prospect, if you're doubting your ability to door knock, if you're doubting your ability to be effective in speaking to your circle of influence and get them to believe and trust in you and your ability to serve them when it comes to real estate, you need to kill that doubt. Doubt kills the warrior, or the warrior kills the doubt. Write that down. Doubt kills the warrior, or the warrior kills the doubt. So how does the warrior kill the doubt? How can you kill your doubts? I'm going to tell you right now. You kill your doubts by running toward them. If you're afraid of door knocking, door knock 10 times as much as you've ever dreamed of doing before. If you're afraid of picking up the phone and prospecting, prospect every day for 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 hours a day until you've mastered it. If you're afraid of negotiating your commission, go role play with people in your office until you're masterful at it, and get out there and negotiate your commission and get what you're worth, and do not settle for a discounted commission because you deserve better. Whatever your doubt is, run toward it, sword in hand, just like this warrior, and cut it down. And when it comes up again, run toward it again and cut it down, and cut it down. That's what a finish line thinker does. That's what a warrior does. That's what a winner does. That's what someone who deserves to make an extra $250,000 in gross commission does. They don't let the doubt knock them down. They get up and they fight and they fight and they fight. They fight for themselves. They fight for their families. They fight for their teams, and they fight for their customers. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to fight and kill that doubt? Type it in the chat. Let me know if you're ready to be a warrior. Let me know if you're ready to win and be victorious, because that's what you deserve. We're getting some good responses. So we're going to show you 3 finish line thinkers. I'll give you some Examples. Well, we'll address that. We'll address that. So the first Finish Line thinker is one Victor Menashe. Victor is the author of the book Magnetic Capital. He is a major real estate investor in the United States. And that handsome fellow he's standing next to is George Ross of The Apprentice, the man who made Donald Trump a billionaire again after he went broke. George Ross is 89 years old, and he and Victor run a mastermind for real estate investors. I had Victor visualize crossing the finish line championship level. When Victor got started working with me, he was doing onesies and twosies type deals. He was buying single family homes or duplexes and triplexes. Now Victor is doing 300 unit complexes. Now Victor's hanging out with people like Richard Branson, Robert Kiyosaki, George Ross. He's become a thought leader. He's standing out and he's visualized victory. And what I've had Victor do and what's worked for him is visualizing victory, visualizing the type of deals he's going to do. He used to raise money in $50,000 increments. That was his biggest increment. Now he raises money in $250,000 and $1 million increments. That's the power of visualizing crossing the finish line victorious. You may recognize Kimberly Finney from the Loretta Finney team. Kimberly and I worked together back in 2015. And Kimberly had a time in her life where there were some distractions in her life. And when we started working together, it was all about helping Kimberly get back to business. Kimberly's a super successful real estate agent, and helping Kimberly get focused was wonderful. It helped her increase her sales results, and it helped her deal with the situations she needed to deal with that were distracting her. And now she's in a fantastic place, both in her business and in her life. It was a total honor to work with the great Kimberly Finney. And this last guy is a fellow named Micah. Micah, the real estate guy. So Micah is someone I worked with in 2015 and 2016. He had a great year in 2014, and 2015 did not start out so good with him. He was starting to doubt his abilities. You know, he had a $500,000 year in 2014, and 2015 started out with one deal for the first 2.5, 3 months. It was terrible. He was doubting his abilities. What we had him do is attack his doubt. He attacked it with skill, vim, and vigor. And Micah has been back up to doing $500K, and actually last year he did $1.2 million in gross commission. Phenomenal stuff. So at the beginning of the talk, I told you that I would tell you how Mark McCoy went from being a fourth place thinker to a finish line thinker. I'm going to do that right now. So after he finished 7th at the '88 Olympics, Mark retired. He said, that's it. I'm 26. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. So a fellow named Colin Jackson, who back then was the #1 hurdler in the world, came to Canada to find Mark to talk him out of retiring and getting him to unretire. He was actually selling real estate at the time and enjoying it, but you know, there was no internet back then, so this guy Colin actually had to fly here, find someone who knew Mark and find him. It's not like you can do it today with Facebook and whatnot so easily. So he found Mark and he said to Mark, Mark, man, come back to track. Come run with me. You know, we'll both get better. It'll be great. You're going to love it. And Mark still had the fire to run track, so he did it. And when he came back, Colin, who was the best hurdler in the world, not coincidentally had the #1 coach for hurdling in the world, a guy named Malcolm Arnold, who's coached more world championship and Olympic medalists than anyone in history for the hurdles. And Malcolm went to Colin and said, hey, Colin, you sure you want me to work with Mark? He said, yeah, why? He said, because, I know what's wrong with him. And once I fix it, because I know I can fix it, he might beat you. So you sure? And here's the mark of a great champion. He said, yes, absolutely. I'm sure. Bring it on. Plus, he thought Mark was an old man. He'd kick his butt. So here's the deal. Mark took a run over a flight of hurdles because Colin asked him to. Malcolm asked him to. And when he was done, Malcolm noticed that his left foot was a little crooked. And just imagine, put your feet together right now. Stand up, put your feet together, and then have your left foot be a little crooked, like about 40, 45 degrees. And you might notice that as a result, your right foot is about an inch further ahead than your left foot. So because Mark was doing this, he lost an inch on that left-footed step. And when Malcolm told him that, he said, you're losing an inch on your step. He said, an inch? I came all this way for an inch? I thought you were going to do better than that, Malcolm. He said, actually, Mark, it's more than an inch because you take 39 of those steps in a race. So it's actually 39 inches. And if you have ever watched the Olympic final for a ballistic sport like the 110-meter hurdles and the 100 meters, you will notice that the difference between first place and fourth place is not a lot. So the difference between first and fourth often is as little as 39 inches. So he said, Mark said, okay, great, how do I fix it? He said, oh, easy. Just focus, take a couple more runs, should be all right. And he was right. That's exactly what happened. He focused, his foot went straight. And here's what happened. Less than 2 years after that, Mark ran in the Barcelona Olympics. And because of this, he won Olympic gold for our glorious nation. First time in 60 years in track and field. And his winning margin was 39 inches. I still get goosebumps when I tell that story because that's how awesome that story is. And coming up is a photo of Mark with the Olympic gold medal around his neck. He's a finish line thinker. So what's the moral of the story? Moral of the story is Mark was one of the top hurdlers in the world. He had worked with the best hurdlers in the world, some of the best. And he'd worked with some of the best coaches in the world, some of the best mentors in the world. But when he worked with the very best, the preeminent coach, the preeminent hurdler, 13 years of frustration ended in 13 seconds because that's how long it took him to run over the hurdles the first time when Malcolm noticed what was wrong with his technique. And all these other coaches hadn't. This is the genius of working with the best. They can accelerate your success powerfully. And this is the genius of being preeminent because then you're the best and you work with the best and people will want to work with you because you're the best. So if this story has resonated for you, if it's touched you, if it's inspired you, type in the chat. And from what I'm seeing, Stephanie, it looks like it is. Okay, so are you a finish line thinker or are you a fourth place thinker? Would you like to know? So here's one thing I'd like to offer you. There's a way for you to find out. There's a test. And it's going to come up on your screen in a minute. There's a link here. It's called finishlinethinking.com scorecard. Okay, and it's coming up in a moment. And here's what it's going to help you do. First of all, it's absolutely free and no obligation, no nothing. You just go on this website, fill it out. It'll be emailed out to you and me. It will help you identify the choke points that are stopping you from exploding your success, the mental choke points. And you will learn how to get past them through some powerful rituals of champion performers, and you'll get to create structures for success. And if you would like to do this, I want to give you an offer that put your information in the form when you fill it out. And in one of the answers, say, Nicky, I'd like my free session. I will offer you, because you are at Royal LePage and here on this amazing wonderful technologically advanced learning services training, a 30-minute coaching session free of charge to help you identify what those choke points are, what's getting in your way, and help you create some structures for success. It's free and there's no obligation, no catch. Just let me know that you want this and I will contact you and I will send you a link to get on my schedule and we'll schedule a time to go through this. It's a free 30-minute call. And that's it.
Okay, great. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna switch things up a little bit, and we're gonna do a little bit of a Q&A.
Awesome.
So let me just get the camera here. You guys, you don't have to look at slides anymore. You get to look at Nikki's lovely face and mine as well. Sorry, guys. Nikki.
You're way better looking than I am. What are you talking about?
Thank you. So okay, let's see. I think there we are.
There we are.
Okay,
Hello,
so
hello,
everyone. Hi. Okay, so it's probably the first time a lot of you guys have seen my face. You hear my voice all the time, but you don't get to see me too much.
How you get a session is go to finishlinethinking.com/scorecard. I guess Stephanie can send that out to folks.
Yep.
And fill out the scorecard and put in your personal information there, your email address, your cell phone number, and say in one of your answers, I would like my free session, and I will be in touch with you, okay?
Fabulous. Okay, so I jotted down a couple questions that I don't know if we got to during the session. Most were actually answered while Nikki was presenting. But there's one here from Trish Duncan, and it's about door knocking. She says, how can I do something I don't want to be done to me, i.e. door knocking? She doesn't like when people do that to her, so she doesn't feel right.
Then don't do it. If it's something that goes against your moral code or what you believe is right, don't do it. But you will need to do something, Trish, something to prospect and to get people in front of you. So if you don't want to door knock, maybe you make phone calls, maybe you go to networking events. You've got to have a solid prospecting plan. So I am the first person to tell you if something doesn't feel right at a gut level, at an emotional or moral level, you shouldn't do it. But you do need an alternative plan because the leads aren't going to rain from the sky.
Fabulous. To follow up with door knocking, what is good for value added door knocking? Like do you have any tips on kind of door knocking strategies of what people can say and do? There's
a number of things you can do. Number one is if you have just gotten a listing or someone on your team has just gotten a listing on the street, it's a great time to door knock to say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, I'm Valerie Johnson from Royal LePage. Mr. Jackson across the street just put his home up for sale, and I wanted you to know that we're helping him. And I was wondering if you were interested in a no obligation value determination to see how much your home's worth. Would you like me to create one of those for you? That's usually something people are going to say yes to, and you can put them into your list. And frankly, if you want to be a little bit more bold than that and say, look, Mr. Jackson's selling his home. Are you looking at buying or selling it anytime in the next 3 to 6 months? Just ask him flat out and take down the answer. They might say, yes, they are. And then you can ask him, do you have anyone helping you? And if the answer is no, then say, would you like me to have a conversation with you about how I might be able to help you? And I'll tell you something. There's a fellow who works for Chestnut Park. His name's Peter Russell. This strategy is a strategy he's been using for 30 years. And he tells me that he has not had to do a cold call in 30 years. Every time he's gotten a listing, he's gotten 1 to 3 listings or buyers from people on the street. So he knocks the 20 doors to the right of the listing, the 20 doors to the left of the listing, and the 40 doors across the street. And if you're in a condo, same. Knock all the doors on the floor above, the floor below. Knock all the doors in the whole condo if that's what you can do. But it's important that you go out there and you get it done. Door knocking is very powerful. If you're someone who's good with people in person, if you're a people person, if you love people, it's a powerful way to get them to see the real you and get some trust, get some relatedness going with them. I love the idea of being face-to-face in front of somebody.
Super. That's great advice. So we have, I think, a really great question from Ryan Lee, where he says, it sounds like everyone here is vets. I'm assuming he's suggesting like everyone's a lot more experienced. He's really new. He started 2 weeks ago. Where does he start?
Where do you start? I would go talk to everyone you know, everyone in your circle of influence. If you're brand new, that's the best place to start. And then I'd get out there to meetups, to networking events, and meet people. Start thinking about what's unique about you. So you're new in real estate. Maybe you can't point to that, but you've had some life experiences. What is it about you that makes you special? What are people always telling you you're good at? And start emphasizing that and how you connect with people. And utilize that as a means of getting them to trust you and want to do business with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Leslie posed a question about
and door knock. If you're not afraid of door knocking, door knock right away.
Yeah. How do you handle the cutting your commission at listing appointments request, especially when the client says that the previous realtor said they would do it?
So this is my own personal belief, and I wouldn't want to have anybody just do this because I believe this, but my own personal belief is I don't believe in discounting. I believe in giving value. And, it's easy to get involved in a race to the bottom with commissions. If someone's willing to cut their commissions, that's usually the sign of somebody who doesn't have a lot of value to add elsewhere. And I would work with someone to help them see what the value of working with me is versus going with someone else. If I can get them a greater price for their home, that might be worth more than cutting the commission, especially for someone who doesn't know what they're doing and just wants the listing and will do anything to get it. They're probably not going to be able to get the best price for the person. I'd use that sort of thing to help bring people around. But at the end of the day, if someone said, nope, unless you discount, I won't do it. Personally, and I'm just speaking for myself, I'd probably walk away from the deal. Because it's important to have a strong posture and let people know what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. You want a certain kind of client. You want ideal clients, clients who love and adore you, clients who understand the value that you bring to the table and want the kind of value you bring to the table and are willing to pay full price for it. There's plenty of them out there.
Yeah. And, I see a comment here in the chat. Someone said, ask them how they're supposed to trust you negotiating the sale of their home if they can't negotiate their own commission. So,
that's a great point. Fabulous. I love it. Well said. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah. Use that one. Okay. Did we get to the, how do you deal with the feeling of defeat?
So I talked about that in terms of doubt. You got to run toward it. You got to get into action. Action is the cure for a terrible mindset.
Yeah.
Doubt, getting in your head's not a great place to be if you're not feeling good. Get into action. Do things that make you money.
Fabulous. Okay, so it looks like that's the end of questions. We're running over a little bit, so we'll wrap up very soon. But last minute questions, I'm doing the last call. Type in your questions now, and I think Nicky will stick around for another minute or so to answer these last few ones that are coming in.
What's my coaching method? I have a system I've developed called the Finish Line Thinking Method. It starts off with the scorecard that I have people fill out so you can understand what your thinking style is like. Is your thinking supporting you or is your thinking holding you back? That's where I start with that. And then my next step in the process is something called a clarity visioning tool. And the clarity visioning tool is all around helping you get clear on what your top goals are in your business and in your life. And then we define together a clear path for getting you there. And that's the methodology I use. And then ongoingly, I provide additional professional accountability and additional professional content around selling and keeping your mindset sharp. A big part of what we do is we work together to create the rituals of champions. We have you live in the 20% that gives you the 80% of your results, and we get you out of the 80% that sucks away your results.
Fabulous. Okay, so it looks like we are wrapping up. So I just want to end this by saying a nice big thank you to Nicky.
My pleasure. This was fun.
It was so enjoyable. I wish you guys could have been here to see him and how dynamic he is when he speaks. I wanted to get up and start moving. I could feel the energy just bubbling. Awesome. So it was really, really pleasurable. Everybody will be getting a follow-up email with links to Nicky, the quiz that Nicky mentioned. And I'm also going to be sending you follow-up email with links to our upcoming webinars. Next month, I will be hosting one about Facebook groups and networking in Facebook groups. And then we will also have Chris Leader talking next month as well. So stay tuned to your inbox for all the details. And yeah, have a fabulous day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful being here. Make it a great rest of your year. You deserve it. You're a hero. You're somebody who has courage and goes out there and puts your heart out to help other people. I salute you for doing that. And because I believe in you, I come here and I do workshops like this to make you better and make you believe in yourself more. God bless you. Have an awesome day.